All right, so this is going to be my review of this 2024 UFL season, as well as a future outlook. We're mostly going to be looking at a bunch of numbers in this video, so if you're not really interested in that, then you don't have to watch this. But I'm mostly going to be looking at like the UFL attendance and viewership and everything for each different team, looking at what markets worked and didn't work, and talking about what potentially we could do for the future of this UFL. So let's get started here. All right, so this probably looks like a jumbled mess of stuff, but basically this is the best way I could show it to you without making spending a whole lot of time making other pretty slides and stuff. So basically, looking at the average attendance here for the regular season games, we were sitting at about uh, just under 12,000 for each game on average. Average viewership was a little over 825,000. So overall, not horrible attendance. You would like to see that a little bit higher, probably than 12,000. You'd like to see viewership. That's actually really good for the viewership. I would hope for like next season to get maybe roughly 1 million views per game. But this is still a really good number for year one of the UFL. Attendance, though, definitely is concerning a little bit because looking at non-St. Louis games, basically when the weeks that St. Louis did not have a home game, the average attendance is just under 10,000, whereas games where St. Louis did have a home game, we were seeing over 15,500. So St. Louis played a big difference in these numbers. And looking at every single game other than St. Louis home games, our average attendance is only about 9,700. So a lot of these teams are not pulling their weight, and this number of 12,000 over here is very much getting carried a lot by St. Louis. Because looking over here, each individual team, we can see St. Louis averages about 34,000. DC is about 14,000. San Antonio is about 12. Birmingham's about 10. Arlington's just a little under 10. Sorry. Then you got teams like Michigan, barely over 8. Houston, barely over 7. And Memphis actually under 7. So other than, St. Louis is obviously doing really good. Teams like DC is doing pretty good. 14,000 is really good considering they never even dropped under 12,000 here. St. Louis peaked at 40,000. Their lowest was a little under 32,000, so they're doing really good all year. DC peaked at 16,000. Their lowest is 12, and even their low of 12,000 here would have been better than all but one of San Antonio's, all but two of Birmingham's, all but one of Arlington, better than every single one of Michigan, Houston, and Memphis's game. So DC's low is still better than most teams' highs, or even second highs or something. So really, really good numbers from DC in comparison. For San Antonio, they're kind of the same. They peaked at 13,000, but they never got under 11,000. So their low of 11,000 still is, would be third at Birmingham, second at Arlington, first at Michigan, Houston, and Memphis. Looking at a team like Birmingham, they actually peaked at 14,000, but they had two separate games here of just over 7,000. So not a great look here for Birmingham, even though you did peak high and had 3 games over 10K. Having 2 games down here at 7,000 is definitely not ideal, but certainly passable compared to some of these other teams here. Because even though this number of 7,133 or the 7,262 are not good numbers, they're still significantly better than most of Houston and Memphis's numbers. So still definitely really good in comparison to some of those other teams. Arlington's not much worse than Birmingham. They peaked at 14,000. They actually never went under 8,000. So their lows, significantly higher there than Birmingham's lows. It's just Birmingham, had a couple more games over 10,000 than Arlington did. Michigan never even got up to 10,000. They only went under 7,000 once, which is, I guess is okay, but you would definitely not like to see you ever go under 7,000. The absolute low that any of these teams should really be accepting is 10,000. And you got teams like Michigan who never hit 10,000. Houston never hit 10,000. They barely ever hit 9,000. They never even got above 7,200 after that. They had 3 games under 7,000. Not a good look here for Houston as a market at all. Memphis, they peaked at about 8,800, never broke 9,000. Not a good look there. They had 3 games below 7,000, 1 game even below 6,000. So Memphis, Houston, and Michigan as well are three teams that are certainly struggling in their market. Teams like Arlington and Birmingham are teams that like could be on the cusp, but with one more year of marketing and stuff, maybe those teams can get back up to consistently above 10,000 because they've at least proven that they can get 10,000 at some points, whereas teams like Michigan, Houston, and Memphis have not shown that at all. So looking like for the future of these markets here, I believe they're not looking at relocating any of these teams for this season, but certainly if nothing improves by the 2025 season, ahead of the 2026 UFL season, if it were to happen, you would think that Michigan, Houston, and Memphis, if nothing changes, that they would very much be in contention to be moved to a new city. There's also talks about a potential UFL expansion this upcoming year for 2025, where you go to 10 or maybe even 12 games, which I'm not completely opposed to that idea, but it would be a little bit concerning to be adding more teams when you already have three teams here in Michigan, Houston, and Memphis who are struggling in their markets. So I'm not completely opposed to an expansion. It'd also be it obviously would be fun to have more football because more teams equals more games each week. We're going to have games on Friday nights now. It's looking like, so that's going to be fun too. But overall, would like to see Michigan, Houston, and Memphis improve. And certainly would not be opposed to an expansion, but I would like you to work out your current kinks and stuff. At least have a plan to try to boost the attendance in those cities before you start adding more teams. Looking at like the TV viewership and stuff each week. It peaked at week 1 at over 1 million, which is pretty good. You see down in week 2 and week 3, it ended up dropping down about 200,000 people from week 1, but still pretty good numbers there. Week 4 and 5, it drops about another 100,000 there from weeks 2 and 3. But then it peaked back up here at week 6 for some reason. Back up to nearly 1 million. I don't know all the stats and stuff. There's probably, some reasons where there's not, other conflicting sports in some of these weeks, and that's why we have more viewership in random week 6 than we do in week 5 by a significant amount. But I don't really have all the numbers on that. But then you see straight from week 6 where it has, the second highest viewership of any week. It goes down to week 7 and 8 where you have the lowest of any other weeks. Not a good look for week 7 and 8. I don't know exactly the reasoning behind all this, of course, but obviously they're still conflicting with NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs, so that definitely could be a big part of it. But then they bounced back up in week 9 to 950K, and then week 10 ended about just under 800K. So overall, not a horrible look for these. They do probably need to do some more research onto why week 7 and 8 are so much lower than week 6 and 9. But then again, they're conflicting with NBA and NHL playoffs. So I feel like one idea to increase the viewership, or at least make a more consistent viewership, is to start the season, earlier, like the XFL did in 2023. Started immediately after the Super Bowl. So you're not really competing too much with the NBA and NHL playoffs. The end of your season still would, I think, but not how you did it this year, where your entire season is competing either with March Madness, NBA playoffs, or NHL playoffs, or a combination of all of that. So I feel like definitely starting it earlier would benefit the viewership a lot. It could also benefit the attendance because, having earlier games as opposed to more summertime games would mean cooler weather, so probably get people more enticed to watch games. Also, other ways you can do things to kind of boost your attendance is, one, this was also potentially boost your viewership, attendance, and your revenue would be to move. This is without even relocation or expansion or nothing. Just kind of move some of these teams to a smaller arena within the same city, because there's no point of having Michigan Panthers play at a 70,000 capacity stadium of Ford Field when they're never even breaking 10,000 fans. So moving a team like Michigan to a much smaller stadium would be cheaper to use, right? It would make the stadium look more full on viewership on TV, which could increase viewership. It would make the in-person atmosphere feel a lot better for the fans and the players because, having 10,000 people in a 20,000 capacity stadium or something makes it feel a lot more compact than a 70,000 stadium. And with that, looking at some of these broadcast stats as well, there's some issues with some things like ESPN2 and FS1 only getting about 250,000 viewers, but that's also kind of expected, being their secondary channel. ESPN had 10 games, had 700,000 viewers, significantly lower than Fox and ABC for some reason. But Fox had 18 games of the 40 regular season and had just under 900,000 fans, or viewers. And then ABC had 10 games, had just under a million average fans. Um, but yeah, I think that's basically going to be it for this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back um, later for more UFL content and some NBA content as well.